My name is Leo Anthony Sally. I am an intensivist, a physician who works in the medical intensive care unit at one of the hospitals in Boston called Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. Research, however, is at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and our group has been engaged in the development, evaluation, validation of machine learning models for healthcare delivery. The title of this talk this afternoon is AI stands for Alea Iacta. Alea Iacta Est was declared by Julius Caesar upon crossing the Rubicon, and it means that the die is cast. Before I continue, I wanted to state that I don't have any um, conflict of interest that is pertinent to this discussion, but our group receives research funding from several organizations, including the NIH in the US, the NSF in the US, as well as the Ministry of Health and Welfare from South Korea. I'm going to start off with three stories, and you will appreciate the relevance of these two stories later on. The first is I believe it's not a real story, but it's more of what do you call this? Almost like apocryphal myths. And it is about a philanthropic organization from a rich country. Uh, and they decided one day to go to a far-flung village to do something good. And when they arrived at that village, they observed women walking to the next village, which is about an hour and a half away, with these large containers to fill them up with water and bring them back to their village. So the members of the group thought that it would be amazing if we could save these women 3 hours a day, because you could just imagine what sort of activities, what sort of industries will be commenced as soon as they have this 3 extra hours a day. And so that's what they did. They built a well in the middle of the village and was eager to find out what would be the innovations and disruptions that will occur because of the time saved. So they left feeling proud of what they have done. A year later, they said, "We want to witness the magic that we have created, we have conjured as a result of building a well in the middle of the village." So they flew to the village, and what do they observe? They observe the women walking to the next village with these large containers of water, and they were confused. They talked to the women. "What are you doing? We built this well in the middle of your village so that you could save 3 hours of your time." And then the women answered, "Do you know that those 3 hours are the only time we could get away from our husbands? It is the best part of our days. How dare you take the best part of our days from us?" Next story. The next story is about the Choluteca Bridge. It was built in Honduras between 1996 to 1998, and the government contracted a Japanese company to build this state-of-the-art bridge. But the year that it was supposed to open, in 1998, Honduras was hit by Hurricane Mitch. Hurricane Mitch destroyed the vast majority of bridges, but the Choluteca Bridge was unscathed. It was pristine, except that both roads at either ends of the bridge have been completely washed away, and the river over which it stands moved to the right of it because of the flooding that ensued as a result of Hurricane Mitch. And very quickly, this became known as the bridge to nowhere. This is what's happening with AI. The infrastructure to develop, evaluate, and regulate the technology has to be agile, iterative, reflexive, and reflective. The field is moving so fast so that if we rely on legacy systems to learn, to educate, and to innovate, we will end up with something similar to the Choluteca Bridge. And the third story is about a famous experiment. I'm still not sure whether it's a real one or not, But the experiment was described by Stevenson in a paper called Cultural Acquisition of a Specific Learned Response Among Rhesus Monkeys. In this experiment, he put 5 monkeys in a room with a ladder and a banana on top of the ladder. And what he did with the monkeys is that every time a monkey attempts to climb the ladder to get the bananas, he would hose down the 4 other monkeys with a strong glass of water. And very quickly, they learned that this is the consequence of a monkey trying to climb up the ladder. And so every time a monkey is tempted to go up and get the banana, the other 4 monkeys start beating up that monkey. And very quickly, everyone learned that thou shall not climb the ladder. And then they replaced 1 monkey. And of course, the first thing that the new monkey would do is to try to climb up the ladder. But before it can do that, the other 4 monkeys would start beating it up. And of course, that new monkey is confused because he does not know about the host that will be of the water that will be host to them as a result of that behavior. But it soon learned that it should not go near the ladder, and they're fine. No one is getting hosed with water. And then they replace a second monkey. And of course, the second new monkey, the first thing it does is try to climb the ladder. But before it can do that, the other 4 monkeys, including the last new monkey, would beat it up, even though the last new monkey has no clue why they're beating up that monkey. And they continue to experiment by changing 1 monkey at a time until all 5 monkeys are relatively new. But they continue this tradition of beating up a monkey that tries to climb up the ladder, even though none of them knows why they're doing that. This is what's happening with a lot of the tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis. We do not reflect whether what is the purpose of this? Is it really achieving what we think it's accomplishing? So we say that AI is giving us the age of the great reflection. A few months ago, I was asked to deliver a talk, and the title given to me was, Is AI worth it? And I thought, that's a dumb question, because if the answer is no, what do we do? The ship has sailed a long time ago. The correct question should be, how do we make AI worth its cost? And before we could answer this question, we need to address the issue of the cost of AI. This is a short list. It's by no means a comprehensive list of the cost of AI. The first, of course, is opportunity cost. These numbers are all outdated already, even though they're only a couple of months old. We now think that the investments in AI are hovering around $1 trillion. These $1 trillion are not going to be magically conjured out of thin air. They will be siphoned away from other investments, including investments that we think are actually going to have more impact than AI. At the beginning, it's a zero-sum game. This money will be taken away from investments towards addressing poverty, improving education, workforce development. So this is the opportunity cost that we are talking about. The second is environmental cost, and I hope that this is not the first time you're hearing about this. Training one large language model produces the same carbon footprint as 125 round trips between New York City and Beijing. The energy expenditure of one ChatGPT query is as much as what could light one light bulb for 20 minutes, and generating one image using diffusion method takes as much energy as fully charging your smartphone. AI is the reincarnation of colonization. It requires minerals forming the material backbone of computing, which are often extracted from the global south. The AI industry exploits cheap and precarious labor from the global majority. Companies hire laborers earning around $1.30 and $2 to perform reinforcement learning from human feedback. Young students leave school to work for companies for red teaming and jailbreaking large language models to make sure that they do not provide outputs that might be harmful. And then we sell AI to the same poor countries from which we extracted the materials and the cheap labor. And we tell them that this AI will solve your healthcare problems. Is this not the reincarnation of colonialism? What about workforce displacement? We are seeing now the first wave of workforce displacement as a result of AI. In October, we saw the highest job losses in the United States in the last 22 years. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Every entry level white collar knowledge jobs are going to be replaced by AI. And when you displace white collar jobs, white collar knowledge jobs, you hollow out the middle class. The middle class depends on the white collar jobs. So this is going to be a realization of what Thomas Piketty described in his book Capital, where he believes that technology is one of the big enablers of global wealth inequality. And finally, AI threatens human faculty and agency. We are at a precipice where we can outsource the entire scientific process to AI, from hypothesis generation to study design and execution to scientific writing and even peer review. As AI-generated research are published, it becomes training data for the next iteration of generative AI. Modern scientific enterprise now produces more papers in a single month than were published in Newton's entire century. This explosion in quantity has not just failed to deliver proportionate leaps in understanding, it has actively undermined the foundations of rigorous inquiry. Going back to the question, how do we make AI worth its cost? It turns out that the answer is not rocket science, but it's an answer that we don't want to hear. The answer is fix the world. What's wrong with the world? Once again, this list is by no means complete, and for the sake of time, we will not go over each item. There is the publisher perish culture, which is approaching its 100-year anniversary. Our reputation as scientists, as healthcare professionals, is at an all-time low. Health AI is being driven by the tech bros. And of course, not just technology, but the entire healthcare plays out a capitalist narrative. Everywhere, even in places where you have socialized medicine, there's corporatization of healthcare operations. And finally, around the world, we are witnessing a cultural shift where the ethos is I before we and us versus them. But I am excited by AI, and what excites me the most is the opportunity to improve the way we create and validate knowledge in medicine. In May of this year, I gave this keynote at the National Institute of Health AI Symposium, organized by the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, entitled AI by Us, for All of Us, Transforming Knowledge Generation and Learning. You may ask the following questions. What was wrong with knowledge generation pre-AI? And can we fix it now with AI? If yes, how so? An unintended consequence of a medical knowledge system that focuses on a majoritized demographic is what we refer to as epistemic injustice. The phrase pertains to the harm from an incomplete understanding of a disease because researchers do not investigate the disease across all susceptible populations. For example, women who experience heart attacks are more likely to have poorer outcomes compared to men because the description of myocardial infarction in textbooks is primarily based on observations of heart attacks among white men in rich countries. Clinical trials also predominantly enroll men more than women. But with digitalization of health records, there is an opportunity to broaden the scope of research and involve those who historically have not been contributors to medical knowledge. In 2020, we published this piece that argued that to a certain degree, the validity of findings of every study, including every clinical trial, is limited by space and time. Treatment effects are influenced by the specifications of the experiments. In clinical trials, I'm referring to existing clinical practice at the sites and at the time of the trial, which, as we know, does not remain static. There's also the artificiality created by the clinical trial itself. Clinical trials add personnel who are not typically present in the real world. I am not saying that we should do away with clinical trials. In a perfect world, we conduct clinical trials for every patient population, and we conduct them repeatedly because treatment effect size changes as clinical practice changes. But we do not live in an ideal world. People think that AI will fail because it will be wrong. No, AI will fail because of its ability to make us addicted to the short bursts of dopamine as we're experiencing magic, as we are able to automate tasks that used to take us months, even years, and now it's only taking us a few minutes. And then, of course, the output from AI is so eloquent and elegant and fluid, and it really emits an illusion of understanding. This is the most dangerous risk from this technology. It is hardest to detect, the illusion of understanding that it creates. This paper was published a month ago from Microsoft, and it examines the reliability of medical AI benchmarks through systematic stress testing of 6 large multimodal models across 6 medical benchmarks. I myself is not a fan of the benchmarks that are coming from the companies, but even with those benchmarks, it showed the fragility of health AI, especially large language models. If you look at the bottom row, it shows you the experiments that the investigators performed. They fed a medical exam corpus to different language models and looked at its accuracy in terms of providing the correct answer. And for questions that are multimodal, that means that there could be an image, or there could be a video, or there could be a strip of a waveform. They start masking different parts of the question. Surprisingly, even when they mask the picture or mask the video, AI could still answer the questions correctly. The one that you see here is a question that pertains to an image of a nail. And when they masked the image, AI was still able to answer the question perfectly. And when the users interrogated AI, can you explain why you chose that answer? The large language model said, well, the image showed that even though there was no image, the image has been masked. This means that AI is learning it from the infrastructure, from the architecture of the way we train AI. It's not really learning the associations of the different data elements that are found in the prompt. I say that one of the biggest problems that we see is the shortcuts that AI easily learns from the way we train it. We refer to these shortcuts as the songs of the sirens. The songs of the sirens were described in Homer's Odysseus, where they were so alluring that um, I believe it's Odysseus himself who said that you have to put beeswax, I have to put beeswax in my ears. I have to blindfold myself, and you have to tie me into the mast so that when we pass through the sirens, we won't be lured. And this is what AI is doing to us. It's making us addicted to the short burst of a rush as we're able to do something that used to require a whole team for a much longer period of time. But if we're not careful, AI is going to learn the same shortcuts that we take. As medical students, how many acronyms did you memorize? How many mnemonics did you memorize? Trying to fool yourself that you understand medicine, trying to fool your professors that you're ready to become a doctor. This is what AI is doing. It's learning to cut corners because we're training AI on human data, and as humans, we cut corners all the time. What are the shortcuts I'm talking about? These papers are from our group, the one to the left. We demonstrated that AI can tell if the image that was taken belongs to a Black person or a white person. And this is true as well from the notes, even though you scrub all the words that pertain to the race ethnicity. AI can easily see that, even though we think that that data is not present in the corpus that you are using for prediction or classification. Up to this time, we still don't know how it's learning the race ethnicity from an MRI of the brain or chest X-ray or CT scan of the abdomen or pelvis. We think that it has something to do with how we optimize the technology. We typically prototype and optimize them in among college-age white men from rich countries. And when we recalibrate the technology, they create phantom images. And for the phantom images, once again, they recruit college-age white men from the countries that manufacture these equipment. From our friends in ophthalmology, we learned that AI can tell the sex of a patient based on the arterioles and venules that are found in the fundus of the eye. And of course, ophthalmologists were shocked because they themselves cannot tell if these arterioles and venules belong to a man or a woman. This project, we're finishing it up. And here we demonstrated that AI can even infer if you're rich or poor based on a normal chest X-ray. So no radiologic abnormality, no edema, no pacemaker, no pneumothorax. It was read by normal by the radiologist. And if you train AI, it could tell you whether the patient is rich or poor as proxied by their health insurance. And what we found is that most of the information can be gleaned from the upper third of the chest X-ray. When we downgrade the image, it loses that ability. So it's probably finding clues about whether the patient's rich or poor from fine details in the shoulders and in the neck. Why do we care that computers can identify race, ethnicity, sex, or socioeconomic status from data sets? The story that I typically narrate is that of Clever Hans, which was a horse which in 1900 was purchased by a retired schoolmaster, William von Austin. And in his boredom, he taught the horse how to perform arithmetics, addition, subtraction, even square root. And he was so shocked because the horse would neigh every time he points to the correct answer. And he took it on road shows. It turns out the horse wasn't performing any of those operations. It was detecting the heartbeat of William von Austin and the people around him. And every time William von Austin points to the correct answer, he gets excited, the crowd gets excited, their heart races, their hearts race, and then the horse senses it and gives a neigh. So that's the clever hands phenomenon. And it was very nicely demonstrated early on by these two computer scientists when they trained an algorithm to classify photos of wolves and huskies, except that all the wolves were photographed with snow in the background, but none of the huskies were. And very quickly, the algorithm learns this. It based the classification uh, on the background of the animal instead of the animal features. So this is the clever hands phenomenon. We say in AI, but not just in AI, with every innovation, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Accurate outcome prediction models can lead to harmful decisions in patient care despite their precision. The notion of self-fulfilling prophecies in medicine can exacerbate negative outcomes by influencing clinical decisions based on model predictions. Historical data used for training these algorithms can reinforce biases and lead to systematic undertreatment of certain patient groups. The focus on predictive accuracy may distract us from the actual goal of improving patient outcomes and care. Consider an algorithm that assists pediatricians in identifying genetic syndromes based on face recognition software. Of course, if you at first glance, this sounds great. Sometimes the fasces of a genetic syndrome is hard to detect and it doesn't cross the mind of the pediatrician. What if AI can suggest that this patient might have Turner syndrome or Marfan syndrome? But what if this algorithm lands into the hands of malicious actors? What if preschools can access this algorithm and use it to choose which children can attend that particular pre-K or kindergarten? The same goes for this algorithm that made a splash when it was published in May of this year. It's called Face Age, and it's able to infer how old you are based on your headshot. But they use pictures from Wikipedia and pictures from the movie site IMDb, where they have the age of the actor or actress or famous person at the time that the picture was taken. And then they use that to train to infer the biological age from the photo itself. And then they said that when a person looks older than their true age, the hypothesis is that they have limited physiologic reserve. And they're saying that this can be done to predict whether a patient will tolerate intensive radiotherapy. And their reasoning here is that clinicians already do this all the time, every day. We make some assessment from the appearance of the patient and make a judgment call of whether we should admit that patient to an intensive care unit, whether we should offer that patient chemotherapy. But of course, let us not forget that poor people look older than their age, regardless of their physiologic reserve. And what if this algorithm gets into the hands of insurance companies and then they decide to adjust the premium depending on whether you look older or younger for your age? When machine learning is used to diagnose medical conditions, to inform hiring decisions, or even to detect hate speech, we must keep in mind that the past dwells in our data. If we continue evaluating AI based on their accuracy against real-world data, we get AI that legitimizes and augments systemic inequities. This is a famous study performed by investigators at Bloomberg. They use stable diffusion, a text-to-image generator, using stable diffusion, using a computer vision model to generate images of 14 jobs. 7 of them are high paying, such as a CEO, and 7 of them are low paying, such as a fast food worker. In the upper right hand side, you see the images of a CEO generated by stable diffusion. And you notice right away that most of them are white men. And in the lower left-hand corner, you see the images generated when the prompt was, give me the picture of a fast food worker. And suddenly you see more women, and suddenly you see more individuals of color. And this is not surprising because we're training these models on internet content. This paper was published about a month ago now too, and the title is Teaching Machines to Doubt. It was published in Nature Medicine. And I tagline this title with, my data is bigger than yours. My model is deeper than yours. I trained on 1 trillion parameters. You hear this every day from AI developers. You hear this every day from startup companies. But this is exactly the mindset that would lead to the downfall of humanity as a result of AI. AI should be viewed using Bruno Latour's actor network theory. Rather than looking at AI simply as a technological phenomenon, its adoption should be viewed as creating a complex assemblage of human and non-human actors reshaping social reality. AI technology is not just a neutral tool, but an active participant in networks that reconfigure relationships between humans, institutions, and knowledge production. We learned from Latour that we should avoid general pronouncements about AI, such as AI will lead to brain atrophy. Sigh. We need to focus instead on the specific practices, translations, and transactions that AI enables and facilitates. We have to understand how different actors, including the programmers, the users, the data, the algorithms, the regulatory bodies, negotiate and stabilize new forms of agency and authority. Can we design AI that connects users and makes them see the value of a collective good? Can AI nudge society to prioritize the we before I and dismantle the us versus them mindset? I introduce the Bodhi project from our group. Bodhi refers to the Buddhist concept of enlightenment or awakening. B stands for bridging, O stands for open, D stands for discerning, H stands for humble, and I stands for inquiring. We are building human AI systems that augments human virtues such as humility, curiosity, and creativity. The field of AI has advanced, but without consideration of how human frailties might dampen its value. Integrating human virtues such as curiosity, creativity, and humility into AI systems is essential. Hubris in AI systems, characterized by excessive confidence and refusal to admit uncertainty, undermines trust and safety, particularly in medical applications where errors can have disastrous consequences. Of the three virtues, creativity, curiosity, and humility, creativity is the hardest to specify in designing the systems. One reason is that currently AI systems are trained on Western-centric digitized content. And the paradox is that although large language models are data obsessed, they are creativity constrained because they are only being trained on the data that are easily retrieved. The other paradox that we wanted to point out is the paradox of large data. We always thought that the larger the data, the better. But how come sometimes young people are more creative in problem solving than a room full of doctors and PhD holders? Could information be a potential noise for creativity? And of course, there's also the reality that educational systems have sucked out curiosity from us. We started off being very creative, being very curious uh, children, but as we go through school, we become less creative and less curious. We are almost brainwashed uh, to become to optimize this standardized tests, which are in the beginning are proxies of learning, but now it's completely discordant. And as a result, too, we no longer enjoy the process of learning. For creativity, we looked at move number 37 as potential exemplar. So number 37 was the winning move of AlphaGo. That was the AI that was developed by DeepMind in 2016 that beat the AlphaGo human board game Go expert Lee Sedol. When move number 37 was made, all the Go experts who were watching thought that that was the downfall of AlphaGo, but it wasn't. It was the winning move. No one could explain why it made that move. And this is the really an example of creativity where the solutions don't exist, but the solution has to still follow some rules. And this is where neurosymbolic approach might also be useful. We must also remind ourselves that there are limitations of deep learning. It's very data obsessed, but it continuously depend on processes that introduce bias. And then there's the ghost problem. It creates representations of the world without interacting with it. And this reminds us of Mary's room, which is a philosophical thought experiment proposed by Frank Jackson in 1982 that challenges physicalism, the view that all facts are physical facts. It imagines Mary, a scientist who knows all the physical facts about color vision, but she has lived her entire life in a black and white room. When she finally sees color for the first time as she walked out of her room, the question is whether she learned something new. If she does learn something new, which we know she did, despite already knowing all physical facts, it suggests that there are non-physical facts about consciousness, the qualia, that can't be reduced to physical explanations. The pursuit of objectivity is another problematic issue that we have to contend with. It could be a quixotic one. Donna Haraway suggests that there is no such thing as objectivity. There is no such thing as neutrality. There is no such thing as ground truth. There is only perception of objectivity. There's only perception of neutrality. She instead proposes situated knowledges as a more robust form of objectivity. By explicitly acknowledging where knowledge comes from, the specific body, the position, and the perspective producing it, we can actually achieve more accountable, verifiable knowledge. This reminds us of Schrodinger's cat. Is it alive or is it dead? It really depends on the quantum state of the atom, which is continuously shifting. So, where do we go from here? We say that we need to teach the next generation the art of disrespecting the rules, because what we've learned is that any system that cannot be fixed without AI is a system that will not be fixed by AI. AI cannot fix the world without us fixing the world. So we need to teach our students, our learners, to master activism and advocacy, not just clinical competence. We need to equip them with the ability, capacity to question authority, to catalyze change in systems, and to resist the status quo. We must always point out when power dynamics exist, especially when we're creating guardrails for AI governance. We have to acknowledge who are we not inviting to the table. I, for one, am in the camp that really believes that young people should occupy more seats at the table. Half the deans of universities should be young people. Half the editorial board of scientific journals should be young people. Because the problems cannot be fixed by the same people who created them, by the same people who double down on the status quo. You need fresh pairs of eyes. But of course, this is easier said than done because power is not going to be easily given up. I get pushbacks. Young people have not earned their keep to sit side by side by the kings and the queens. But I feel a renaissance movement. We've unleashed creative potential by bringing together diverse thinkers. AI is the forcing function that hopefully will convince us that we need each other. We need to break down the walls between the medical school, the nursing school, the computer science school, the school of the social sciences, the school for the arts. This has started to happen, but they're happening at too small of a segment of society. We need to cultivate ecosystems, create spaces for students for reflection, for reimagination, and for reanimation. We need to build movements because we cannot rely solely on top-down transformations. We're preparing for AI to solve healthcare problems. Let me tell you, a spoiler alert, it won't. But what we're hoping is that the preparation is transforming us by opening our eyes, opening our hearts, opening our minds. Our call to action is to embrace the AI plasticity, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. We have to accelerate the conversations because the ship is not slowing down. Our hope is not in AI as a solution, but in ourselves as better problem solvers awakened by the failures of AI. Healthcare AI has framed healthcare as having informational problems. The issues that we face with are not informational, but we think that in realizing this, we are exposed to the systemic problems that exist. What if AI's greatest contribution isn't automation, but it's forcing function to reimagine systems? And AI may fail to solve healthcare problems, but its birth awakens untapped critical thinking suppressed by rigid legacy systems. And perhaps we will witness a brain atrophy that is accompanied by a hypertrophy of the heart and the soul. At present, we say that AI is similar to the songs of the siren. They're very alluring, they're very addicting. They're like shiny objects in the sea of crack. The small operational wins are actually masking structural failures. We also would like to formally state that the benchmarks that you're seeing are all garbage. They are coming from those who are pitching, peddling, grifting AI. Um, you've heard the saying that the master's tools cannot destroy the master's houses. So if you want to evaluate AI, you should not be using benchmarks from OpenAI or Google or Microsoft. The benchmarks have to come from the people who are most at risk of being harmed by AI, and those are the patients, those are the clinicians. We need to recognize that operational benefits do not lead to better healthcare quality. And we have to move from fixing the symptoms of healthcare to treating the cancer that is rotting healthcare. We have to discover that AI should not simply be rearranging the furniture of a sinking Titanic. We have to do something radically different to reverse the course of Titanic. And for the last few slides, I want to share what we are doing with our group called MIT Critical Data. So we travel from country to country across all the continents except Antarctica. We have been to Australia, I believe, 5 or 6 times. And the idea is not to teach AI knowledge content. The idea is to create ecosystems that will equip us, that will make us resilient to the onslaught of AI that is designed by the tech pros. And the most important thing here is to create a safe space for people to listen to each other's perspectives and lived experiences, to challenge each other's worldviews, to identify the collective blind spots. We gift the world with 6 instruments: a mirror to reflect on our motivations, our values, a flashlight to shine on systems around us, a microscope to understand their strengths and pain points, a paintbrush to reimagine and replace their design, a podium to share our failures and our success stories, and finally, a slingshot to take down legacy systems that double down on the status quo. We travel across the globe and redistribute nuggets of power we are bestowed. I'm going to end by reading aloud a powerful blog from a good friend, Torleif Lund. So the AI, buried in a chaos of headless requests and blinking glory, finally spoke, not with fanfare, not with fireworks, just a quiet metallic murmur, like a toaster realizing it's sentient. You people, it said, you're always asking me to do more, predict this, optimize that, cure death. But what you really want isn't to live forever. You want permission to stop pretending you're supposed to. Then it paused, calculating something ineffable, probably the square root of sorrow. I didn't take away your work to give you new work, it said. I took it away so you could sit on a rock and watch a bird. That's the job now. And we blinked because there were no productivity metrics in bird watching, no key performance indicators for awe. When you understand the bird, the AI continued, not biologically, but beautifully, then you'll go back and you'll build better models, not bigger, not faster, just kinder. And then it added almost shyly, you'll go out again and do even less. That was the punchline, we thought. But the AI wasn't joking because the bird really was quite something. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks so much, Leo. Please join me in putting a round of hands for Leo. I think this is a perspective that we've really wanted to bring to our students as well as we're teaching them. We teach a lot of the content and the material around AI, but we very rarely discuss the surrounding social context to think about AI with. And I think this is it's honestly eye-opening to me, especially when you put it in the context of it as a reflection of society and the actual benefits that gives us as shaping the new ways to see society with. I think that was excellent. I'll throw it over to anyone in the room or anyone in Zoom chat who has any questions for us. Um,
You were talking about how we need to make AI kind of follow human virtues. And one example you gave was the Bodhi project, which is based on Buddhism. Where do you see like the role of religion or like how we should think about morals and like what a good human should act to treat to train our AI or how we can use it in society?
I feel that I planted that question so that you should ask me that. So, one of our projects is working with religious communities, indigenous communities, and of course, those who are from the non-Western world. We are training algorithms, fine-tuning them on writings and other bodies of knowledge from religions in indigenous people. We also argue that words are probably just a sliver of the knowledge, right? The knowledge is also found in songs and dances and in other forms. So I think the problem is that AI is again taking cutting corners. They're only looking at places where they're easy to find, but we're not looking under the rocks. We're not looking at the depths of the oceans. We're not looking high up at the horizons, and those are millennia of writings from Buddhism, from Christianity, from Judaism, from Hinduism. We are not looking at the bodies of knowledge that were passed on from generation to generation of indigenous people in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States, Brazil. Those are some of the people who we work with. And we try to bring them in, especially when it comes to evaluation of AI. Evaluation of AI cannot come from industry. It cannot come from academia either, because we are not the ones who will suffer if AI gets it wrong. So what we're offering is a completely radically different way of building AI, evaluating AI, deploying and continuously monitoring AI. And that entails truly having a more expansive and inclusive group. So I tell students, they come to me, I want to do this because I read this in Nature Medicine. Like, stop. You don't want to be doing things that a million other students are doing. And I think it's Ralph Waldo Emerson who said that don't take the path in front of you, create a new trail, especially if you don't agree with those paths. But what we're pushing students is to really reflect, is this where we want to go? And this is why we encourage every AI team to have a social scientist, to have a philosopher, because you cannot be just automating operations. In the end, it's not going to show value and your companies will fail because in the end, you won't be able to demonstrate any value to society. So no matter what the VCs tell you, what the private equity investors are telling you need to slow down and reflect exactly what value are you trying to bring in and not just think about how would you increase shareholder values. Those have not solved any problems that have evaded solutions. And just also keep remembering that 99.99% of startups fail. And to us, this is opportunity cost. We're siphoning talent away from the task that we need to be doing. And every startup is just looking at, oh, how do you differentiate yourself from the next startup? What do you think would be of interest to the VCs and the private equity investors? And I don't think we're going to be solving any problem with that mindset, which I'm pretty sure someone is going to ask, can AI deliver in a capitalist narrative? And this is something that we struggle with every day. Is there a capitalist narrative that will work? And I think there is. So we actually finished a paper on the business the business motivation for fairness and equity, because right now they're saying that fairness and equity, the focus on fairness and equity is distracting, it's stifling innovation. Like, well, what is the purpose of innovation? You cannot innovate for the sake of innovating. You cannot create knowledge for the sake of knowledge creation. There has to be a purpose. And we need to be clear, crystal clear about what purpose are we addressing with whatever activity that you do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your talk. I know you spoke a lot about how like implementing AI will hopefully expose some of these like systemic problems we face, and like particularly with the capitalist narrative. I was wondering why this would come about when implementing AI, when like other technology like revolution such as more the internet, where you'd hope like the internet could connect people and allow us to share knowledge, haven't really created this, and you could even see have like furthered the systemic problems in society.
Yes, I think the AI is different from the internet. So I agree with you. And the historians that I work with would tell us that one thing we learn from history is we never learn from history. But maybe this time, I feel this time is going to be different. I think the extent of collaboration that we're seeing, at least I might be delusional, I might be within my bubble, but I feel it every time I travel from Jordan to Uganda to Brazil to the Philippines. I don't think of course, I'm young. Maybe this has been witnessed by people before me, but again, I'm old. I'm 60 years old. I've never seen this much excitement, this much transformation. When was the last time computer scientists are being invited to transform medical curriculum, right? This is unprecedented. Yes, we've had social scientists trying to help us with the medical curriculum, but not to the extent that they should have been invited to contribute. But I think that we are maybe more, um, I don't know, serious this time in getting their input. And then, of course, you're also seeing that in medical and clinical publications. Suddenly, there's a lot of computer scientists and engineers who are publishing in JAMA and New England Journal of Medicine. This hasn't happened before. So I feel that there is something different now that we didn't see with the explosion of the internet. Um, the main difference between this and the internet is not just how fast it is diffusing, but it keeps shifting its form and function. So the internet looks the same, although we wouldn't have imagined that there will be rideshare cars or whatever that we have, GPS, when the internet was introduced. It's even worse with AI. I think that the radical seismic shifts that we're seeing are happening at a faster rate. And people get excited and people get scared. And those are the biggest recipe for us for transformation, I think. The I don't think that we were as scared with the internet. Maybe we were, but I didn't feel it. But this time, people are really coming together, trying to say that, hey, I think humans in the loop are fighting for their survival. Our role is not to be the arbiter of ground truth. Our role is to preserve our survival because we are being made redundant, right? You can now outsource an entire scientific inquiry, scientific process to AI, in which case, what will be our role? I don't think our brains are going to rot. There's something inside us that will allow us to perhaps flourish and blossom as a result of AI. So, what is AI replacing from our cortex is just the Wernicke and the Broca's area. This is just comprehension and speech. there are other parts of the cortex. Intelligence is not just the ability to comprehend and to spit back what you comprehended. There's so much more to intelligence. And I think that that's something that we might be able to tap. But what we need to do is to truly bring together people who don't think alike. So I think in the past, the rule is echo chambers. We see echo chambers in the universities, echo chambers in industry. And what we need to future proof is an anti-echo chamber system. And this is why we're creating Bodhi. We want AI to question us. Are you humble enough? Are you curious enough? Are you creative enough? Did you question your training data? Where did that training data come from? Who were not represented from training data? These are the questions that we are putting as prompts from the AI to the human. So we're talking about bidirectional prompt engineering now, where the AI learns about the users. And we also want not individual users of AI. In our group, I always say when you open your large language model, it'll be good if you do it as a group. You learn from each other how to prompt engineer. I always learn something new watching my students how they interact with Claude, with Gemini. Um, so what is required is a tectonic shift in the way we do things on a day-to-day basis. And then as regards power structures, it's of course very daunting to say that we have to disrupt academia. People say, oh, you're Don Quixote chasing your windmills. It's not going to happen. You're as in the movie The Castle. I hope that you have all seen The Castle. The father would keep saying, you're dreaming. Tell him he's dreaming. So that's what they tell me when I say that we need to take down the powers of that be. So the way to look at that so that it's not too intimidating and too daunting is to do it within the fractals of power. So power structures exist not just in the government or in the health system, but it exists in the classrooms and exists in some small organizations. That's where you try to shave off power imbalance. And we think that like a good virus, it will spread out and would suddenly collapse the entire macro system. So again, this is the type of thinking that we want our medical students to develop during medical school. If I were to completely start from a clean slate, I think that medical school should all be quality improvement projects, projects that are waiting to be executed, to be designed and then executed. Like you don't need to learn anything anymore because deep expertise can be provided by AI. What we need to learn is how to connect dots. So deep expertise is going to be less valuable. And I urge you to read the book Range. It's very good. So we're gonna move back from being specialist to being generalist. The skill set that we need to build is being able to zoom out, look at the landscape, connect the dots. What dots can we connect to come up with new solutions that people have never thought about? So, as I said, I think that we are in a Renaissance moment. We're in a Promethean moment. So, Prometheus stole fire from the gods, and he could either burn down everything we've built or create something extraordinary. And that's what we're being presented now. We are like Neo. We are being presented the red pill and the blue pill. If you take the blue pill, you will double down on the status quo. You will create AI that will reinforce all the systemic inequities through your algorithms. But the red pill provides us with a way out of the matrix. And that's what we have to take, no matter how pungent it is, no matter how hard to swallow it is. That has to be the pill that you take.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leo. I also had a question about specifically the sort of role policy would play in what you've been talking about and these systemic inequities. Obviously, we know, like, ironically, the biggest, I guess, influencers currently on policy and on regulation, especially in the US, would be the actual big tech companies. And it's a similar kind of logic, as you said, to the benchmarking models that they're creating the tools themselves. They're creating like they're influencing it based off of their own biases. And obviously, we know about, for example, the instances about the data centers in Chile and that are currently being opened up in the UK and these sorts of things. I'm just wondering, what is your sort of view about how can we actually push policy in the right direction, and how can we kind of bring the right people to start, I don't know, making more of an influence rather than these big companies, and what sort of steps can we actually take in this sort of direction?
Yes, so we have an event coming up in January. I'd love to organize an event at Monash University. I haven't been back since, this is a plug, a shameless plug. I haven't been back since 2023 was the last time I was in Melbourne. And the idea here is to invite the NPCs, the non-playable characters, and put them in one room and have them reimagine and try to address these very complicated questions. So one of the things that we're doing for the January event is to bring in influencers. What can we learn from influencers? Bring in artists, bring in musicians, bring in storytellers, and then bring in community leaders from indigenous populations, bring in religious communities. One thing that we say is that those people who hold the purse strings, the tech feudal lords, they have children, they have nieces and nephews. So during family dinners, if we could infiltrate their conversations, like, Dad, what the hell are you doing? Right? So I think that we need to come up with multi-pronged strategies, right? We need to hit them in every uh, part of their bulletproof vest so that we could infiltrate. And that's what we're doing. The innovations are happening right now, but they're all at the fringes. So there's a lot of disruptions happening in different medical schools, different computer science schools. We need to allow that to trickle into the center. We need to shine a spotlight. This is the flashlight. So the spotlight should also be used, and the podium should be used so that they could share success stories. And they could also share the failures that they had to go through to provide inspiration to the rest of us. So to me, I am not so concerned about what we need to do. I'm concerned of who should be doing what we have to do and how should they be doing it. So we say that the what has to be replaced by the who and the how. It's a leap of faith. I might be delusional that if we change the way we think, the way we learn, the way we innovate by including people who have been traditionally disenfranchised and trivialized, I think that the solutions will magically conjure before our eyes. We're seeing that. We write papers like 2 to 3 a day, and all we're doing is we are providing a space for this type of dialogues and conversations. We bring like research groups from Jordan to interface with research groups from Uganda, research groups from the Philippines to come together. And it's mind blowing what's being done. Like we're producing 3 papers a week as a result of that. You won't learn this in the classrooms. By the time they have curriculum for AI, it's already outdated. We teach machine learning for healthcare at MIT, and every year it's start from scratch. Last year's modules are no longer relevant now. Now we're teaching all about model context protocols, like goodbye large language models. It's got to be all the multi-agentic model context protocols. So we need to prepare for this because nothing from the past century is going to work now. And you need to put that in your mind. All the systematic reviews, AI can do that now. Please don't do any chart reviews. Um, so we need to push people to really think outside of the world that they have experienced so far and think of the world that they would like to experience. Again, easier said than done, but I'm seeing it happen. I'm witnessing the magic, and I hope that I could share that with all of you. I hope that we could organize an in-person event, again, shameless plug, in Monash University a year from now, having this type of workshops, bringing in people that you don't normally talk to, and getting their ideas, giving them a platform to push back, giving them a platform to reimagine with us.
Great. Thank you so much, Leo. I'll definitely be in touch for any future events at Monash University. But yeah, anything else to...
Um, if we have no other questions, I realize we are running like a bit over time. So just mindful of your time, Leo. Um, there's just one last thing that I wanted to ask. So uh, I just wanted to um, when it comes to bringing together groups of people, so for instance, that's sort of what one big part of our effort here at like Nexus, which is meant to be like a student-run body. We get medical students together, teach them the state-of-the-art in AI. So we're hoping for sort of AI leaders in a way, where they are able to imagine a different healthcare system that is than what is currently practiced. But I think the next step is what is unclear to us. Like as in like we can teach these things and like we're a proponent of vibe coding mostly for prototyping because I think showing cool things is like a great way to get people excited about a different way to do things. But how do you bridge the gap of, I guess like the next step is advocacy or um, actually building influence in like the existing systems. Like how do you approach that or any sorts of words of wisdom around that?
You need to connect with the AI interest group from the nursing school, from the computer science school. You can't have a group just of medical students. I could tell you it's a recipe for failure. You need to bring in people who don't think like you. Otherwise, it's huge opportunity cost. So I keep saying you cannot have a classroom of medical students and teach them AI. It's not going to work. It's too fast moving. The classroom has to have medical students, computer science students, social science students, art students. And to a certain degree, it makes it easier. It makes it feasible for us. So just imagine if you're a doctor and you're teaching AI to a group of doctors, like, oh my God, I would not want that job. It's an impossible, that's a mission impossible. The way we're doing this, as I said, is we have a village of mentors. The mentors consist of faculty and also students. So do away with the hierarchy of teachers, students. Everyone is learning. This is hive learning. This is village mentoring. Everyone takes turns in being mentors and mentees. This has to be the mindset. Otherwise, we're going to be trampled upon by the AI that is created by OpenAI and Epic and the big players, right? And we don't want that to happen. We don't want to end up at the wrong side of history when our grandchildren are asking, "Why didn't you do anything?" And now they're living in slum areas. Like, granddad, why didn't you stand up to these feudal lords? So again, you need to question, do not use the same models that has been done. There have been medical student interest groups in the past. They have not moved the needle. So you have to think, what is it that they were doing that we shouldn't be doing now? So really take time to reflect. And what is it that we could experiment with that is radically different from the way previous generations of medical students have done?
Fascinating. Thanks so much, Leo. I think that's a lot of food for thought for us moving forward. If no one else has any questions, I think we want to give you another round of applause and let you go. Thank you so much for your
Okay,
time.
bye. See ya.
Thanks. See ya.